Here's something strange about retirement. The whole idea of it, that you stop working, live off your savings, and enjoy a couple of decades of leisure, is barely 100 years old. For most of human history, it didn't exist. You worked until your body gave out, and then your children took care of you. Today, Americans are expected to fund 20 or 30 years of not working, mostly on their own, and the machine built to help them do it was designed for a country that doesn't really exist anymore. So how did we get here? Go back to the 1930s. The Great Depression wiped out a generation's savings, and older people became the poorest group in the country. In 1935, the government responded with Social Security, a federal program that taxes your paycheck while you work and pays you a monthly check once you retire. It was never meant to make you rich. It was meant to keep you off the street. Then came the middle of the century, and a second support got added. Big companies started offering pensions, a guaranteed monthly payment for life, funded and managed by your employer. Work 30 years at the same firm and you'd get a check until you died. The company took on the risk. The company did the investing. All you had to do was stay. That world is gone. Starting in the late 1970s, a small change to the tax code created something called the 401k, a retirement account you fund yourself out of your own paycheck, usually with a partial match from your employer. It was cheaper for companies, so they loved it. Pensions quietly disappeared, replaced by accounts where you pick the investments, you carry the risk, and you hope the math works out. In a single generation, the job of funding retirement shifted from the institution to the individual. Nobody really voted on that, it just happened. Economists used to describe a secure retirement as a three-legged stool: Social Security, a company pension, and your own personal savings. Knock out the pension leg, and the stool gets a lot wobblier. That's the world most Americans retire into now. So what does retirement actually cost? That depends on how long it lasts and how you want to live. But financial planners generally say you'll need to replace about 70 to 80% of your pre-retirement income to keep your lifestyle roughly the same. Here's the problem. Social Security, on average, replaces only about 40%. That gap is the whole story. Let's put real numbers on it. In 2026, the average Social Security retirement check is around $2,000 a month. Call it $25,000 a year. For a medium earner, that benefit replaces roughly 43% of what they used to make. For a high earner, it's closer to 28%. For very low earners, it can reach near 80% because the formula is built to help them the most. So on its own, Social Security leaves most people well short of that 70% target. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. To fill the gap, you're supposed to lean on your savings. But the typical American household approaching retirement, people aged 55 to 64, has a median of around $185,000 saved, according to the Federal Reserve. That sounds like a lot until you do the arithmetic. A common rule of thumb says you can safely pull about 4% of your savings a year. 4% of $185,000 is roughly $7,400 per year. That's not a second income. That's one nice vacation. And more than half of American households report having no dedicated retirement savings at all. Not a little. None. For those families, Social Security isn't one part of the plan. It's the entire plan. And when you claim, it matters enormously. Take Social Security at 62, the earliest age you can, and your monthly check is permanently smaller for the rest of your life. Wait until 70 and it grows by about 8% for every year you hold off. Same work history, wildly different check. Meanwhile, retirement keeps getting longer. Someone who stops working at 65 today might live another 20 years or more, which means their money has to stretch across 2 decades of rent, food, and, the big one, healthcare. Here's where it gets interesting because the shift from pensions to personal accounts didn't just move risk around, it created one of the largest pools of money on earth. Americans hold trillions of dollars in 401ks and IRAs. That's the individual retirement account, the version you open yourself instead of through a job. And all that money has to live somewhere. So it flows to the financial industry. When you put money in a 401k, you're usually buying funds run by giant asset managers. Firms like Vanguard, Fidelity, and BlackRock manage enormous shares of America's retirement savings, and they earn a small percentage of everything they hold. That percentage is called an expense ratio, and it sounds tiny, often well under 1% a year. but a fraction of a percent taken from trillions of dollars every single year, whether the market goes up or down, adds up to serious money. Then there's the advice layer. Financial advisors, brokers, and insurance agents earn fees or commissions for helping you manage or move your money. Some charge a flat rate. Others take a cut of your assets or a commission on whatever product they sell you. And a big part of this business is selling products. Annuities, managed accounts, and the like that promise safety or simplicity in exchange for fees you might never fully see. These days, a lot of that money moves on autopilot. Many workers are now automatically enrolled in their 401k and dropped into a default investment, usually a target date fund that shifts on its own as you get closer to retirement. Convenient, sure, but it also means the fees get charged automatically to millions of people who never actively chose a thing. On the other side sits the government. Social Security isn't invested in the stock market. It runs on what's called a pay-as-you-go system. The payroll taxes coming out of today's workers' checks go straight to today's retirees. It's less a personal savings account than a giant handoff between generations. When there's a surplus, it goes into a trust fund that holds government bonds. And that trust fund is exactly where the trouble is heading. So who actually pays for your retirement? In this system, mostly you, with help. Let's walk the money. First, Social Security. You pay into it your whole working life through a payroll tax and your employer matches it. That buys you a monthly benefit later, but remember, that benefit only replaces part of your income. Then there's your 401k or IRA funded out of your own paycheck. If your employer offers a match, that's real free money on top, but you still have to contribute to get it, and plenty of people can't spare much. Then comes healthcare, which is its own maze. Most people get Medicare at 65, the federal health insurance program for older Americans. But Medicare isn't free, and it doesn't cover everything. There's a monthly premium for the part that covers doctor visits. In 2026, the standard amount is about $200 a month, plus deductibles, copays, and big gaps like dental and most long-term care. To plug those holes, many retirees buy extra coverage, a Medigap policy, which is private insurance that fills Medicare's gaps, or a Medicare Advantage plan, which is a privately run version of Medicare. Either way, more money out of pocket. And when the checks and the savings and the insurance still aren't enough, that's when families step in. Adult children cover the shortfall, or a spouse becomes an unpaid caregiver. This labor never shows up in anyone's retirement budget, but add it all up across the country and it's worth hundreds of billions of dollars a year. The numbers show just how heavily people lean on that one federal check. About 1 in 5 Americans over 65 rely on Social Security for 90% or more of their income. For them, there is no cushion. Now, let's talk about the costs nobody quotes you up front. The first is inflation. A retirement income that looks fine at 65 can feel a lot thinner at 80 because prices keep climbing while much of your income doesn't. Social Security does get a yearly cost of living bump, but many pensions and fixed payments don't. And the things retirees spend the most on, healthcare and housing, tend to rise faster than everything else. The second hidden cost is timing, and it's brutal. If the stock market drops early in your retirement, right when you start pulling money out, you can lock in those losses and never fully recover. Retire in a good year, and you might be fine. Retire in a bad one with the exact same savings, and you could come up short a decade later. That's luck, not planning, and the system offers almost no protection from it. Third, fees. That fraction of a percent we mentioned doesn't sound like much in a single year, but stretched across a 40-year working life, a 1% annual fee can quietly swallow a large share of your final balance. Money that ends up with the fund manager instead of you. It's the most expensive thing most people never notice. And then there's the longest tail of all, living a long time. It sounds strange to call that a cost, but financially it is one. The longer you live, the greater the chance you outlast your money and fall back entirely on Social Security or on your kids. Nobody plans to run out. Plenty of people do. Step back and the logic of the whole thing comes into focus. Over the last 50 years, America made a quiet choice to move the risk of retirement off of employers and the government and onto individuals. A pension guaranteed an outcome. A 401k guarantees only an opportunity. If it works out, you keep the upside. If it doesn't, That's on you. Who benefits from that arrangement? Employers, who shed a huge, expensive obligation, and the financial industry, which now collects fees on trillions of dollars that used to sit in company pension funds. Who carries the risk? You do. The market risk, the timing risk, and the risk of simply living too long. And the demographics are about to make all of this harder. The baby boomers are retiring in enormous numbers, people are living longer, and birth rates have fallen, which means fewer workers paying in for every retiree drawing out. That's the squeeze behind a headline you've probably heard. The main Social Security Trust Fund is projected to run short around 2033. If Congress does nothing, the program could only pay about 77 cents on the dollar. That's not the program disappearing. The payroll taxes keep coming in, but it's a warning light that's been blinking for years on a problem lawmakers have understood for decades. So here's the honest verdict. The American retirement system does deliver something real. Social Security has kept tens of millions of older people out of poverty, and it does exactly what it was built to do. Provide a floor. The trouble is that it was only ever meant to be a floor, and we've spent 50 years quietly asking it to be the whole house. The math works beautifully for people with steady incomes, employer matches, and decades to let their money grow. It works far worse for everyone else, and it hands the most risk to the person least able to absorb it. The financial industry wins on volume, employers win on savings, and the retiree comes out ahead only if the timing, the markets, and their own health all cooperate. Retirement in America isn't really a plan anymore, it's a bet, and the house always takes its cut. If this helped you make sense of where the money actually goes, give it a like and subscribe. It genuinely helps the channel, and there's a lot more of this system left to take apart.